Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission with the first decade review of health status report to build a healthier St. Louis, and RareGem Productions. Power up with the positive. Learn more at oneraregem.com. That's ONERAREGEM.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network.
Today we will be discussing New Year's commitments or resolutions, if that's what you do, and ways that we can all start off the year to have a happy and healthy 2014.
I do want the listeners to know that you can do it. It being anything and often everything that you want it to be. You can succeed. That oftentimes, depending on who you are or where you are, there are barriers put in front of you by way of negative thoughts or negative circumstances or negative people. But if you continue to believe in you and you continue to tap into that inner spiritual strength, that you can do it.
We'll be right back. So, Dr. James, share with us what it means to you to be alive and well in STL.
Alive and well in STL to me means not just waking up every day, but waking up with a purpose, doing something, and doing something a little different every day, but all things working together for that which is important to you.
Alive and Well STL.
Good morning, St. Louis, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and host of Alive and Well STL, sponsored by the St. Louis Regional Health Commission. Today in studio, we have Dr. Jade James, Director of Research and Medical Services at the St. Louis County Department of Health and a member of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission's Provider Services Advisory Board. Dr. James, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
The St. Louis Regional Health Commission's Decade Review of Health Status, that's a 10-year look back, cites a couple of statistics that I think are interesting, Dr. James. I want to read them to you. 32% of city residents and 31% of county residents have hypertension. 35% of city residents and 37% of county residents have high cholesterol. Heart disease was responsible for 27% of all deaths reported in 2010. Just a few statistics. So based on the health concerns that you witness as you serve patients and oversee providers in St. Louis County Health Department, what is your wish list for a healthier St. Louis region?
If I had to put a wish list together, first and foremost, I would want it to be a community effort. None of us walk alone. None of us are intended to be alone, whether, it's an individual, whether it's the family or the community in which we live. I think we have to do better as a community to work together for the good of all of us. The second thing, as we get more specific, if we work together as a community, I'd like to see us all work together to decrease obesity. Everything that you just named, and we know that that's just a sample, is rooted in obesity more times than not. And so if we get our friends from housing authorities to look at the houses that they allow people to live in, if we get our environmental community to look at the environmental hazards of the communities that we live in, if we get our medical providers on board for allowing people or helping people to understand the impact of obesity, not just on them, but on their children and on the generations thereafter, it truly becomes a community effort. Parks and recreations can help us have more open spaces to move. Law enforcement can help us have safer places so that we want to go out and walk. So I think if we stick with number one, it feeds into number two. It's got to be a community effort. The third thing, if you look at the decade in review and some other reports, we've got to look at concentrated areas of poverty, and we have to eliminate those concentrations. Poverty in and of itself is a concern, but it's an even greater concern when the areas of poverty are concentrated. And so that feeds into the education, that feeds into the long-term health, that feeds into the health outcome. So if I had a wish list, I think those three would be at the top.
So we are already in high gear of holiday eating and fellowship. Is there a way that we can enjoy our favorite dishes and still watch our waistline?
Some of this may not be new, but we'll just say it again.
Okay.
One of the ways is to just use a smaller plate. because a smaller plate looks full. And then one of the other things is, depending on your purpose for why you're there, understand a sample is a sample. Sometimes where you are is to just tie you over, not really fill you up. So you can use smaller plates. The other thing that I like to do is when you go, take a look around for what all is available first. Because sometimes when you walk in and you just kind of start eating, you get the first one, you're like, oh, that's good. And then you go to the second one, you're like, that's good. Then by the time you get down, you're like, well, if I had my choice, I'd have started here first and maybe not there. So take a look and see what's available to you. Kind of plan your attack, if you will. Plan what you really want and what you don't. Understand that there's give and take. If you want the pie, you can have the pie. You can't have the whole pie. But choose the pie, but then know that there's some sacrifice on the other end. You either got to add some vegetables at the next meal, or you got to add some exercise or some activity. So there is give and take. And then if you know it's just going to be just completely out of the ordinary, then eat before you go so that you're not as full, you're not as hungry, and then it really does become sort of a snack or a sample.
Right. So Dr. James, as the new year approaches, it is common for people to want to make a fresh start. Some call it resolution. Some people shy away from that word. What tips can you provide to our listeners who want to set the goal of being more healthy in 2014?
The first tip is to actually set it. Some of us think about it. Some of us play around with it. Some of us make jokes about other people. But first and foremost, you just have to actually set the goal. And then you have to look at, once you set the goal, you actually have to commit to the goal. You can't just say, I want to lose weight in 2014. You can say it, but actually write it down. And then you actually have to commit. So you have to think about, what are you going to do to get to that goal? And maybe you start out with, this is what I'm going to do at least once a month or once a week or once a day, and allow that to grow. But you have to first set it, and then you have to commit to it.
So what's the best way to break old habits and start new ones?
Accountability. And accountability, I think, is different for everybody. So that first you set it, then you commit to it. Then you look at your life and your circumstances. Sometimes you have that one friend that nags the living daylights out of you, but you know that that's your accountability partner. Some of us are so tech savvy that you got 10,000 apps on your phone. Use one of them as an accountability standard. Sometimes it's at work, and there's people at work. Some will make fun of you. Some will actually support you. But find one or two people. You don't have to broadcast it if you're not comfortable, but find one or two people to say, hey, this is what I'm working towards. And you'd be surprised how suddenly the person that brought you chips will start bringing you a bag of peppers. You can do it, but I think the biggest thing is just accountability, however that looks for you, however you define that.
I found a tip as well. It said, rather than aim to form a new habit fully, aim to make progress in the direction of that new habit. So you may not cut out coffee by tomorrow, but you can drink more water and less than coffee over a month or two.
Exactly. So for all my friends at Starbucks and all the lattes that you do on a daily basis, if your morning consists of a 24-ounce Starbucks, maybe it starts out with just cutting it down to 16 ounces. So absolutely making progress towards whatever it is you set is just as important as what you think is the end goal.
Okay, Dr. James, I'm being honest with myself. What should I do when the inevitable happens? I break my resolution, the guilt sets in, and I'm really tempted to return back to my old ways.
First, just realize that whatever we set journeys. We don't really set goals. And I say that because no matter what we do, it's always a process to get to where we think we want to be, whether that's school, whether that's work, whether that's a professional career, whether that's a goal or a weight loss goal or a healthy goal that you set for 2014. Realize that it's a journey. And in that journey, your good days just have to outweigh your bad days. So when you have that day that you just want to sit in and mope and you actually want the whole pie, maybe by the time you get to half of it, you realize, wait a minute, there is a tomorrow that I can have this. Let's say you actually get to the whole of it. It doesn't mean go bake another one so you can have a whole one the next day. And that's what we have, setbacks, and setbacks are okay.
Think about the patients that you see every day. Mm-hmm. What are the biggest barriers that you see for people to reach their health goals?
The mindset. I think some of us feel like once we get to the goal, it'll be easier. We never imagine the struggle through the journey of the goal. And then some of us reach that goal and don't realize it's often harder to maintain it than it is to get there. Some of us think about the job that you had, the first job you ever got. You were so excited about finally having that job, whether it was after you graduated from college, whether it was you were 16, whatever it was. Week 2 into the job, you're like, what in the world is this? I just wanted the job. I didn't want to actually work. And it's the same thing with your goals. Oftentimes, maintaining your goal takes as much work, if not a little bit more, than achieving it in the first place.
So it's a good point. The mind is the control tower of the body. Mm-hmm. And as a man thinks, so is he. So your thought life and where you start with making decisions to decide to make a change is very important. Can you name some of the ways that people can stay motivated to reach their goals?
Several ways. First, we said set the goal. So now write it down. Post it, whether it's on a Post-it, whether you type it on the computer, but actually write it down. And then place it somewhere that you can see it on a regular basis. Sometimes that's on the refrigerator, so you see it daily. It's on the bathroom mirror, so it wakes you up every day. It's on your screensaver, but whatever you do, you want to write it down. And then you want to be able to see it regularly so that it's a constant reminder. Again, tell a few people, but don't get mad when that accountability partner starts to hold you accountable. And then start wherever you are. You don't have to come up with an elaborate plan. If your goal is to start moving more, most of us have some sort of home that we live in, whether it's an apartment, a home, or whatever. One of the quickest ways to raise your heart rate is to try to set a timer and clean that house in whatever given time, you set it for. And maybe you start with just cleaning the living room. Try vacuuming in 30 seconds. I guarantee you'll break a sweat. Try that laundry. Instead of struggling and try to take everything down in one load, make 2 or 3 loads. Trust me, up and down steps is a good way to get your heart rate going. So look at where you are and what you have available to you. If you have the luxury of being able to get a gym membership or a workout group, great. But don't tie your destiny to something that you don't have control of.
And you can share that goal with your primary care physician, who is also your partner in this. So you can tell them about your goal. You can ask them to help you with your plan and think of it more of as a partnership. Absolutely. Than something that you dread having to do once a year. I think that's another really good way for people to connect their goals with people that can help them to reach them. 2014 has lots of changes to healthcare and insurance, as I'm sure we have all heard with the marketplace and the debate around Medicaid expansion. Thinking more big picture and systemic now with you, Dr. James, what are some ways that people are going to be able to not only set healthy goals for themselves, but they're going to need some things systemically to take place to help them? One of these ways is insurance. So starting in 2014, what do people need to do to get access?
In order to get access, you have to take advantage of what's available to you. What's available to you today, first and foremost, is the healthcare marketplace if you don't have insurance from your place of employment. The marketplace is a great opportunity to sign up for affordable health care, not free health care, but affordable health care. And the plans that are selected are based on the income that you make and the income that you provide when you sign up for it. Also in St. Louis is what we call a safety net of providers, which are the groupings of federally qualified health centers plus the St. Louis County Health Clinics that provide access to care to individuals, sometimes through grants, sometimes through no fee at all, depending on your income, and then other times through a fee associated, again, we call it a sliding scale, but it's associated with the income that you make. But you have to get up and you have to be an active part in that process.
So one of the goals perhaps that needs to be set to have a healthier 2014 is set the goal of being informed and signing up for coverage as it's appropriate for your life situation. In your experience as a medical provider, how does having health insurance help someone to stay healthy?
One of the things about health insurance, especially when you use it, and I feel like I'm plugging, the Affordable Care Act, and I guess in some ways I should, but I think one of the best things about the Affordable Care Act that's different than previous insurance is the preventive nature that has been added to healthcare insurance in general. Insurance used to be more often than not, you only needed it when you got sick. And so we've developed a culture and a nation of people that think insurance is only there for when you get sick. The beauty of healthcare and insurance is that you now can actually go to the doctor and say, I think everything is fine. Is there anything that I need to work on? Is there anything that I can do? Believe it or not, diabetes has precursors. Hypertension has precursors. Cervical cancer for women, there's precursors to that. They're called screening tests. And so the health insurance allows you to get those screenings long before you ever get that disease. And even if you are at greater risk for getting that disease, you can learn some of the things that you can do to try to prevent that disease, or at least that disease will take longer to show up for you.
What actions do you want listeners to take today to develop healthy habits and live life the way that God intended?
First, recognize that your mental health is as important as your physical health. We all are faced with life and with stress, some more than others. And we have to find ways to deal with our mental stress that are not aggressive, that are not an attack to other people. We have to deal with our children and their mental health concerns. We have to do something about the level of violence that we're facing. Otherwise, we won't be here. We'll all be violently attacked and we'll all be eliminated. So we have to work together to make mental health as important and as equal as your physical health. Number 2, prevention is the best thing that you can do. So that if you've not had that once a year checkup, get it, especially if you currently have insurance. If you don't have insurance, when you get insurance, the first thing you want to do is a preventive exam. You want to know how you can set your goals. Even if, in fact, you're beyond prevention and you actually go to the doctor and you discover you have diabetes, then treatment is the key. Don't ignore it. It's not going away. I do love God. I do pray regularly, but diabetes requires medication, not just prayer. You can pray and you can medicate, but they go hand in hand. The third thing would be to strengthen your spiritual health, that whatever your faith is, whatever your belief is, know that there's a higher power for all of us. And whatever you call him, however you reach into that energy, continue to do that, because on those days when you want that guilt to set in because you ate that whole pie, know that there is strength from within, and that comes from your spiritual base. So those would be the actions.
So, Dr. James, thank you for joining us today and for the work that you do and you continue to do in our community. You're so passionate about the issues, and what's so special about you is how much you value community feedback, input, and things that happen being a community-driven process. That's such an asset for St. Louis, and I want to thank you personally for the work that you do. Is there anything else from your heart that you want to give to listeners before we wrap up?
I do want the listeners to know that you can do it, and you can do it. It being anything and often everything that you want it to be. You can succeed. That oftentimes, depending on who you are or where you are, there are barriers put in front of you by way of negative thoughts or negative circumstances or negative people. But if you continue to believe in you and you continue to tap into that inner spiritual strength, that you can do it. I don't think that we're ever put here to do anything alone. Many of us are so culturally driven to not ask for help or to do it myself. We all bear some responsibility in our journey, but our journey is always more fulfilling when you have people with you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Alive and Well STL. For more ways to take control of your health in 2014, we invite you to visit us online at aliveandwellstl.com. For recipes, exercise tips, and tracking sheets to help us stay on top of our 2014 resolutions and commitments. Also, we invite you to share with us. We want to hear back from you. Talk about your 2014 resolution, and we can stay on track together. What will it look like to be alive and well in 2014? Thank you so much.
Alive and Well STL. Thank you for joining us today. For resources available, go to aliveandwellstl.com. If you have more questions about the program, need help, or want to connect, please call the message box at 314-333-8369. The Regional Health Commission with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Jr. committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade in 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at stlrhc.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.